BYU football. Now, that we're a little ways off from signing day, and a little bit of a lull here. Haven't had a lot of recruiting news and the like, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about Gerry Bohanan and him joining the BYU football program and what it means for BYU football's fortunes if he ends up as QB1. Well, and the I guess the question was asked to me, he's like, Jake, is he the guy who is going to be going into spring camp the number one quarterback? I said, I don't think so. I think BYU has every intention of letting this quarterback battle truly play out. Now, the leaders in the clubhouse, I would say, are Jake Retzlaff and Bohanan as your 1-2 combo, who are most likely going to compete for playing time at that quarterback position. But that does not take out a guy like Nick Phillips from the running. It does not take a guy like Cade Fennegan out of the running. It doesn't take also a Ryder Burton and or incoming true freshman Noah Lugo, who recently enrolled at BYU, out of the running for this quarterback derby. And I'm also forgetting Cole Hagan. Every quarterback that BYU has on their roster right now in winter conditioning should be thinking, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to stake claim and prove why I am the guy for the BYU football program. Now, they can have that thought process, but the coaches will ultimately decide who is going to be QB1 for BYU when they kick things off against Southern Illinois on August 31st. We have a long way to go until that happens. But it feels like this quarterback battle for BYU could be one that's unlike many we've had in the recent past. Remember, we've had quarterback battles that featured a three-way battle between Jaron Hall, Zach Wilson, and Baylor Romney in the not-too-distant past. We also had quarterback battles involving guys going back even further. Remember Taysom Hill and some of the QB derbies he had with Riley Nelson at the time. There's some thought that they should give the reins to Taysom Hill. Just these quarterback battles have existed, but I'm having a hard time remembering one as wide open as this. We go back to maybe 2004-ish when you had, what was it, the Matt Berry, the Lance Pendletons of the world. You also had John Beck on that roster. Man, just some of the quarterback battles of yesteryear for BYU. It doesn't feel like it's ever really been this wide open for BYU in quite some time. And if I'm mistaken about that, feel free to hit me in my comments and let me know that I'm a buffoon and I'm missing out on one. But I'm looking at this, and like I said, I think it's going to be a 1-2 battle, at least initially, between Jake Retzlaff and Gerry Bohanan, because they seem to have the bona fides and the resumes that would indicate that they're going to get the first crack at staking claim to this job. But in some ways, I've got a small part of me that if you're going to go with this quarterback group, which I'll also be honest about, I'm not all that thrilled with, because you look at the storylines around each one of these guys is, okay, Gerry Bohanan, okay, he hasn't played in over a year and a half. Last time he played was October of 2022. He had a pretty major shoulder injury, is rehab from that. If you look at him throwing in indoor facility film that people have posted on social media, he looks healthy, but when the bullets are live, is he really going to be able to live up to what he's expected to do? He's only had one proven season, and that was his season he led Baylor to the Big 12 championship. So yes, he's got the resume that says, okay, if he's healthy, he could be the guy. Jake Retzlaff was the number one quarterback, according to ESPN, of all junior college quarterbacks coming out in the 2022 recruiting class. He went 0-4 at BYU, was a turnover machine, had a just north of 50% completion percentage, obviously added the running threat that BYU wanted in this offense, but Gerry Bohanan absolutely adds that in his own right. So looking at each one of these quarterbacks, I could go down the list. I would take forever to break down all of my qualms and the qualifications, I guess, at the same time for each one of these guys. But is there some thought that maybe BYU should push all their chips in on one of the young quarterbacks? And what I mean by that is, do you potentially say Ryder, Burton, Noah Lugo? Whichever of you guys is the better quarterback, we're going to ride with you, and we're going to just take our lumps in 2024 and let it bygones be bygones. If they flame out, great. Then you insert Jake Retzlaff and or Gerry Bohanan into the mix, and you just kind of ride things out and just do essentially a full reboot and go youth movement with this quarterback position. I'm telling you right now, I sincerely wish, and I know that missions are great things. I would not trade the 2 years I spent in Taiwan on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for anything in the world. But wouldn't it be nice to have a guy like Enoch Watson coming in as a freshman for BYU this year? Because that kid, and this is just my perception, that kid looks like he has the goods to be the next great BYU quarterback. Alas, he's going to be out in the mission field for at least the next 2 years. And at that point, okay, maybe if you were to turn the quarterback position over to a Noah Lugo and Ryder Burton, and things are going well, then you have a guy like Enoch Watson set up to come in, maybe redshirt his first season back, get his legs back underneath him. And then at that point, a guy like Ryder Burton would be going into what, if I'm not mistaken, his senior season, Noah Lugo as a junior, and then you have a little bit of a succession plan set up. I know it sounds completely risky, and it in my own mind, as I keep saying this, I'm just like, do they really want to do that? And I actually have my thought process that I'm the only one who's thinking this, because I think BYU wants nothing more than a guy like Jake Retzlaff and or Gerry Bohanan to step up and seize the reins of this and be the veteran leader that they want at the quarterback position. But if either one of them or both of them don't show the goods in spring camp, going into summer, and obviously throughout training camp, maybe you just do. You just say, you know what? We're throwing it to the young buck. We're going to let them, young bucks, I guess I should say, and really let Lugo and Ryder Burton kind of duel things out here and see whichever one of them proves to be the most capable. And then you just kind of ride the highs and lows with what would be a first-time starting quarterback who has got no game experience in the Big 12 Conference. Yes, you'd probably be dooming yourself to potentially another losing season for BYU. You'd be relying very heavily on an offensive line that's being revamped, but does have some pretty good pieces in place. And also you'd have to have a running game led by, ideally, LJ Martin be the leader for BYU to take a lot of the stress off that young quarterback. But can you really bank on all of that? It seems like a risky proposition, but I'm just not enthralled at all with this quarterback group for BYU. It's nothing against Jake Retzlaff. It's nothing against Gerry Bohanan. Gerry Bohanan did a great interview on Cougar Sports 960 with Ben Criddle and came off as a very polished young man who's driven and wants to get things right and enjoy his final season of collegiate eligibility. And he knows the system at BYU and all this stuff. Jake Retzlaff, he said all the right things and did everything within his power to be the guy for BYU at quarterback since arriving from the junior college ranks. I've got nothing against either of them, but I just don't think that either one has what I believe it's going to take to lift BYU to where they want to be in 2024. And where do they want to be? Well, I think BYU in their heart of hearts wants to get to bowl eligibility. They want to get to 6 wins. Can either one of those guys lift you to 6 wins? Well, Jake Retzlaff very nearly did it against both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, but turnover issues, once again, in both of those games, cost BYU dearly. And he was a chief architect. That 100-yard pick six against Oklahoma sits squarely on the shoulders of a guy like Jake Retzlaff. So I just, do you go all in on a young quarterback? Like I said, just take the lumps that are going to come with playing a first-time quarterback, especially against the caliber of competition that BYU has on the schedule this year, and just say, hey, LJ Martin, offensive line, you got to help this young guy out. Wide receivers, I know that the passes aren't going to be as precision pointed as you would like them to be, but bring them down if they're within the realm of you being in your catch radius. Just bail these guys out. And man, it was an interesting conversation me and my friend had, and we kind of came to a consensus that, yeah, neither one of us is really all that thrilled about what BYU has at the quarterback position right now. But the hope is, I guess the sincere hope I have is in spring camp, either Jake Retzlaff and Gerry Bohanan step up and prove that either one of them are the guy. And then at that point, if not, maybe BYU's coaching staff, Kalani Sitake, Aaron Roderick, Matt Mitchell is the assistant QB's coach, Fesi Sitake is the passing game coordinator, even new offensive line coach and run game coordinator, TJ Woods, would have some say in this. They probably would then say, okay, what contingency plans do we turn our attention to now? Do we turn it over to the young guys in the summer and say, get yourself ready? You guys are going to be the leaders going into training camp. It really feels like this spring camp could be very pivotal for BYU's chances of getting to bowl eligibility in 2024. And I'll be also honest, at this juncture, it's going to take a really, really Tyler Algier-esque type rushing attack for BYU this season, in my mind, for BYU to get to 6 wins. I don't think the quarterback play is going to elevate BYU to that level. I think it's going to be LJ Martin and whoever else is at running back alongside him, whether it's Hinkley Rapati coming off a knee injury. You also have Miles Davis in the mix there. You also have Nukulu Vahelu if he's back at running back after moving to defense last season. Whoever it is, that running back group better be ready to go, and they've got to lead the way. And the offensive line has got to really step up and really rebound in a big way this year, because it feels like one of those seasons that no matter who is under center for BYU, the quarterback is going to need a lot of help from the guys around him versus in past years where the quarterback seemed to elevate everybody else around him at BYU, kind of like an inverse of what we've seen from some of these quarterbacks of late for BYU. I'm thinking of Jaron Hall. I'm thinking of Zach Wilson, etc. So interesting stuff. Would love nothing more than for you guys' feedback. So feel free to drop us a note via email, lockedonbyu@gmail.com. Drop us a note on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can drop us a note, Locked On Cougars, or reach out to me on social media. I'm on X, on Twitter, at Jacob C. Hatch. Love to hear from you guys. I'm also on Instagram, Jacob C. Hatch, as well, if you want to get your thoughts in that way.